There used to be a profession on the River Tyne and the Wear, employed thousands of people and used a completely renewable form of energy before coal and steam power really took the nation by storm, causing steam engines to crisscross the entire country. These people worked on a very specific type of boat called a keel boat. Back in the early days of the coal industry, the rivers weren't dredged. There wasn't maintained depths, and ships would jettison their sand ballast just into the river. This would stop big boats from being able to get upriver in order to load coal from the mines that are situated around the landscape. This necessitated a boat which had what's called a low draft, the distance between the bottom of the boat and the water line. These boats are able to get into shallower water, and they were called keel boats. There were over 500 on the River Tyne and 500 on the River Wear. What's quite unique about them is that they powered themselves mostly using the tide. Crews were actually paid by what was called the tide. High tide, they would go upstream and load up with coal, and then they would lazily, almost like a leaf along the river, let the dropping tide take them to where the larger boats were at anchor alongside in deeper water. This was a very manual job. Keel boatmen were actually a very renowned bunch. They were heavy drinkers, but they very much looked after their own, including even building hospitals. There is actually a Keelman's Hospital in Newcastle now, which is unfortunately derelict. They lived in the Sandgate area of town, and there are folk songs now about keelmen around Sandgate. Later on, they started using sail and would use oars, but for the most part, something like 20,000 tons of coal per river. So every tide, 40,000 tons could go up the Tyne and the Wear just using the tide. They were superseded. That basically means that they lost their jobs because of coal staves. The Gateshead has a famous coal stave now, which has some fire damage. But honestly, there's some parts of North Shields River where you can find small sections where there's 16 coal staves, each serving a different mine. When these coal staves existed, keelmen actually violently protested against it all, caused damage, etc., where they could, to try and keep their career as a keelboatman alive. Unfortunately, there are no keelboats anymore, but you can, around the world, see similar practices carried out by bunker barges, etc., where smaller boats will go out to ships at anchor and load them up with oil, stuff like that. Interestingly, keelboatmen might, weirdly, if they came to the modern day, they might like to see the damage that's happened to the coal staves at Gateshead, because that's ultimately what put a lot of them out of work. There's an interesting, potentially nonsense thought, but there you go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.